It is absolutely no secret to anybody who watches this channel that I love Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is my favorite game in the whole franchise, and I spend a lot of time giving it praise for everything that I love about it. In that case, I suppose it's only fair to do a video on the things that I don't like about this game. Hey everyone, I'm Constant Canadian, and this is everything Borderlands 3 did wrong, in my opinion. Borderlands is a series built on the chase of loot. Whether it's getting a random herald from a bullymong pile in Borderlands 2, or finally getting that Cobra drop after 9 painful hours of farming. Getting that occasional legendary or unique weapon felt amazing. This is the first place that Borderlands 3 really messed up. The insane amount of world drop legendaries. Getting a legendary in Borderlands used to feel, well, legendary. It was a special drop that felt great to get, especially if it was from a world drop. In Borderlands 3, however, it is more rare to not get a world drop legendary than it is to get one. It also doesn't help that so many of the legendaries in Borderlands 3 are super basic. None of this would have really been an issue if there had been rarities after legendary, but there isn't. If there had been a pearlescent, seraph, or effervescent rarity in Borderlands 3, then we would have had something that was more rare than legendaries to hunt for at the end of the game. Now there are a lot of people that really like this drop rate change. But with so many different weapons and over 250 legendaries in Borderlands 3, it just makes Borderlands 3's legendary drops feel pointless. Especially when at least 35% of Borderlands 3's legendaries are pretty much just complete garbage anyway. In a game like Borderlands, you need some sort of survivability, whether it be damage reduction, health regen, health gate abusing, etc. The most popular form of survivability in Borderlands has been lifesteal, whether it be through skill trees or with Moxie weapons. This is another place where Borderlands 3 really screwed the pooch. Every single character aside from Flak has lifesteal in their skill tree in some way or another. Now, lifesteal isn't inherently bad by itself, but in a game like Borderlands 3 where max health is 50,000 or so and a weak gun does 18,000 damage, lifesteal is pretty broken. It's at the point where at Mayhem 11, the Vault Hunter does so much damage that even just 1 or 2 points into their respective lifesteal skill is enough to make them completely invincible. It's also problematic that this leaves a lot of the skill trees feeling pretty similar survivability wise, as the only thing you really need to survive in Borderlands 3 is 2 points into sustainment, salvation, or Russian offensive. And then all the rest of your points can be specced into damage rather than being used defensively. This is a part of the reason that playing Flak is so enjoyable for me. They're the only character in this game that doesn't have any inherent lifesteal skills, so there's actually a bit of a challenge in keeping them alive. Lifesteal has always been a super easy way to keep your character alive, but when everybody has lifesteal, and lifesteal is as broken as it is in Borderlands 3, it just doesn't feel special. One of the most protested parts of Borderlands 3 was its story. Without a doubt, Borderlands 3's story is inferior to both Borderlands 2 and Borderlands the pre-sequel. And while I don't think its story is bad per se, it certainly could have been better. And I recently made an entire video about Borderlands 3's story that you can watch here for more information, as I don't have time to go into detail here. The story is definitely where Borderlands 3 falls flat, even if the gameplay is some of the best in the series. When Borderlands 3 first launched, it had a lot of issues, mostly surrounding farming and game-breaking glitches. But it also had a load of balance changes. Some would say too many balance changes. You know what, matter of fact, I would say that. Borderlands 3's balance shifted so damn much in the first 3 years after launch. Every time a new hotfix was released, you just had to hope and pray that your favorite gun was still viable and didn't get nerfed into the grave. This got especially bad after the launch of Mayhem 2.0, where Gearbox just went absolutely buff crazy. And while that may seem like a good thing, it just ended with half the weapons being completely useless and the other half being ridiculously overpowered. And that's just considering legendary weapons. This gross overbuffing pretty much left every single non-unique weapon absolutely worthless, with the only real exception being Torg shotguns. This power discrepancy from Gearbox's overbuffing make this game either a cakewalk or an absolute slog to get through. Additionally, the balance changes pretty much left out every single mission reward or non-legendary unique weapon, so there's next to no missions actually worth completing in Borderlands 3. Whereas in Borderlands 2 you had the Ruby, the Ladyfist, the Fibber, the Morningstar, the Aquitas, and the Orphan Maker, In Borderlands 3, you have the Traitor's Death and the Leech, I guess, if you want to count those. Another pretty big issue with Borderlands 3's balance is anointments. Conveniently, I've also made an entire video about why I don't like the anointment system in Borderlands 3. Essentially what it boils down to is the anointment system essentially replaced the beloved weapon part system from Borderlands 2, and makes the actual weapon not matter anywhere near as much as that yellow text that's under the weapon. Plus, damage at endgame is just too reliant on anointments, and it makes it feel really unsatisfying. One of my biggest gripes with Borderlands 3 isn't the story. It isn't the lack of a 5th or 6th Vault Hunter. It isn't the excess world drops. No. One of my biggest problems with Borderlands 3 is the randomized class mod and artifact system. My favorite part of Borderlands is the class system. I really enjoy the RPG aspect of Borderlands, with different classes who are better at certain things than other classes. We all know how an RPG works, right? Borderlands 3's class mod and artifact system seems to be taking a step away from the RPG aspect, however. Your class really has no effect on what your character does best, and it is instead based on what passives your class mod and artifact roll with. You would think that Flak is the best with snipers, being the Hunter class, but if you give Amara a Phaserker that rolled with sniper rifle damage and critical hit damage, suddenly she's way better with sniper rifles. And honestly, I have nothing against the skills being randomized on Borderlands 3's class mods, but the passive stat rolls should be static, or at the very least restricted, where certain class mods can only roll with 7 or 8 different passives, instead of the 56 that every single class mod in this game can roll with. Another problem with this system is that it again prioritizes farming randomized drops rather than actually farming for the individual item itself. I would much rather have a breaker with weapon damage, critical hit damage, and cooldown rate than a Phaserker with splash damage radius, magazine size, and cryo resistance, for example. Borderlands as a franchise seems to be stepping away from the whole RPG element of these games. If any class mod can roll with any passives, then what's the point of having different classes, let alone different class mods? This next point is in a pretty similar vein to the last one. The skill trees in Borderlands 3 have an issue. To put it bluntly, Borderlands 3 skill trees have an identity crisis. That is to say, they do not feel special. Aside from a few skills here or there, most of the skills in this game feel pretty mundane, and it's almost like they're just lazily designed. This kind of goes hand in hand with my second point about lifesteal being in 3 of the 4 Vault Hunter's skill trees. A great example of this is Moses' Demolition Woman's skill tree. The only skills that actually boost splash damage, or demolition, in that tree are Fire in the Skag Den and Toward Cross Promotion. The rest of the skills in that tree are pretty worthless for splash damage, aside from the Capstone Short Fuse, which is only useful thanks to Borderlands 3's Broken Mayhem skill scaling. But Grizzled, Means of Destruction, To the Last, and Explosive Punctuation are all essentially just fluff that's required to get the aforementioned Capstone. Another great example of this is Zane's Green Tree Undercover, with so many useless and stupid skills that the only reason that any sane Zane main, try saying that 3 times fast, only ever specs into the tree for the all-rounder Barrier Augment. Borderlands 2 skill trees were pretty good, aside from gauges, but they at least strengthened the character's core aspects. The skill trees in the pre-sequel weren't as basic as they were in previous titles, but they were super creative and fun to play around with. In Borderlands 3, however, skill trees just kind of feel bland and unsatisfying for the most part. Borderlands 3 has its issues to say the least. However, I still say that Borderlands 3 is the most fun to play game out of the whole franchise. Is there anything you didn't like about Borderlands 3 that I didn't mention in this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching and have a fantastic day.